Franciscans. Our province has been in Philadelphia since the 1990s in Center City at St. John the Evangelist Parish, beautiful location right near City Hall. We have had our postulancy program, our kind of first year of discerning with us in Philly, almost 20 years. But a lot of times we were just renting places. We're looking for a home that would be a permanent place for our postulancy program, but also a place that would allow us to do ministry, allow us to really have access to ministry. And so the 2016 we came here. The draw, I think, to Frankfurt and to the now closed parish, St. Joachim's closed parish here in Northeast Philly in Frankfurt. The draw was being able to really be immersed in the neighborhood, be a part of, not simply coming in from the outside and then going back home, but that our home was with people we wanted to serve. And St. Joachim's, now Padre Pio Prayer Center, is right in the midst of Frankfurt, and then Kensington right down the street. A short walk or drive or train. We have our own L stop here at Church Street, and right down the street we can go and be with those in need.
And so the impression would be that Kensington would be the neediest of the needy, essentially. Is that what you find when you go out into the street here? For people that have never been to Kensington, what's it like? What is your experience on the streets walking down Kensington Avenue?
So I'll say, as Joseph and I have spoken about often, and many of the friars who have worked here in the past, 7 years, we find a lot of different types of needs, right? And addiction is just a particularly awful disease, and it leaves people completely impoverished in ways that is true evil, right? As opposed to some of the other types of poverty that we find ourselves interacting with, maybe it's simply poverty in relationships and loneliness in the neighborhood, which is awful to encounter when you see someone really lonely, or material poverty, they're just hungry, they don't have money, financial poverty, all the different ways that poverty can express itself and people have been victims of. That addiction is really ugly. But what's been your, Joseph's been here the past year, so.
Yeah, new perspective.
Right. Yeah, I think kind of going off of that, when I've tried to explain just being in Kensington to people that I know from before I joined, I found it helpful to say and to explain it as there are every type of poverty is present. So you have the financial poverty, you have the emotional poverty, the mental poverty, right? A lot of the people on the streets struggle with mental health issues and addiction. And so, yeah, it really is just, the first time walking in, you don't know how to respond to it because it's so different, I think, from what most of us kind of experience in our day-to-day life. So it takes a little bit to get used to, if that term is applicable here, I guess. But as I've been going more, because we go about once a week to serve the poor down there, it becomes more comfortable almost in that you start to recognize faces. You start to kind of have the people that talk to you every time that you're there. And you can kind of see the impact that you're having on their lives in a small way. But in that, what would be perceived as a small way for me is a big thing for them.
Why would you say that? Why would it be a big thing for them?
Well, I think one example is names, right? So there are a couple of people that we see regularly where you get to know their name, and you see them and you remember their name, and they might be in a situation where they haven't been called by their name in days or weeks, or they haven't had anybody take the time to remember their name and think that they were worth remembering. And so I found in my experiences where it's even just remembering a couple simple names goes a long way for somebody.
That's amazing. You wouldn't think that. Because everybody probably listening to this or here, people know our names.
Yeah,
you wouldn't think, but it makes sense because if you're just a tent on the streets,
you're
just a number,
person, number, whatever.
And it's hard too, because I think to Joseph's point here, our ministry is not, we're never going to turn anybody away who wants to get clean, who wants to change their life. Of course, we're there for them, but that it's not a realistic expectation that we're going to have hundreds of people get clean and sober, that we're going to solve the opioid crisis, right? And so a lot of what we do, both in Frankfurt and in Kensington, is a ministry of presence, right? That the hope is, like, we will be the consistent presence in their life. We will be a healthy, consistent presence in their life, and we will continue to bring them prayer, continue to bring them whatever small things we can bring them, right? Maybe it's a little bit of food, maybe it's a little bit of water, it's a rosary, it's just let's pray together, let's talk, let me just listen. And sometimes just listening to somebody, even as they're, just venting, what a difference that can make in their life, right? So it's that ministry of presence that I think, again, Mother Teresa really showed the way, in India, and the sisters continue to do in other parts of the world, but we've seen as friars modeled by other ministries, and we think, that's kind of the way to do it.
It's interesting, I was reading yesterday something about the fall of the Roman Empire and the rule of Benedict, and how the monasteries after the fall of the Roman Empire provided just that to the pagan and the Germanic tribes that were around. These people were living such kind of crazy lives, and then the monasteries and the monks were providing just basic semblance of order, and hey, you can come here, here's how you make food again, here's how you, so it's very interesting.
Here's how you live healthily, happily.
Yeah, and that was like what rebuilt Europe.
Right.
It's just that simplicity. We were just over at the last stop. If you guys know Eddie, but he was saying something similar. He said, we're not here for everybody. We're here for that one person that wants to change. That one person that wants to change their lives. Do you have any anecdotes of people that you've encountered that have decided maybe that the life of addiction maybe isn't for them anymore and really want to change, or has it been just sort of being with people and you haven't seen that kind of change?
I think, at least in my experience, for the most part, it's been the latter, where it's just being with people, it's being present. But one story does kind of come to mind, and it's not a story of like somebody who wanted to be completely free from addiction, but we were down on the street handing out casseroles. They were coming through line, and they said with like a big smile on their face, like, I've been free from fentanyl for like 8 days. I'm still getting high on other stuff, but I've been free from fentanyl. And I was like, that's a huge step though, because like as a drug, that's just so addictive and so like detrimental. And so being able to celebrate in that little moment, even though it wasn't like, I don't want to do drugs at all anymore, but that little moment of like, like there's something to celebrate here. So I think in my experience, I've just seen a lot of the little things, and I haven't had anybody be like, I'm ready, I want to get clean, like take me to a rehab place or anything like that. But
what do you think that Kensington, the way that it is in this area, says about the modern world? Do you think it has any comment that you can generalize, or is this just an anomaly?
I'm always hesitant to generalize, just because we are trying to encounter individuals, and to say something about the world as a whole or modern society is always difficult. That being said, I'll just say about Philadelphia, that we as a city can allow this, it really, I think I'll just say it speaks to this human condition that we don't want to have to get involved in mess. When we see someone else's mess, because I generalize to just the normal homeless guy in any city that you might find on the street, and how many people just walk by, right? Well, we just have that now. It's just multiplied by however many hundreds or 1,000, right? Concentrated in one location. And so you can't just walk by, so you just walk around. People will literally just say, well, if I have to go to Northeast Philly, I'll just drive around Kensington. I won't drive through it because I don't feel safe, right? So I think it's just the human condition, right? I don't want to say that this is a modern society issue, though. That's awful, but in St. Francis's time, there was a leper colony. So when someone had leprosy, you celebrated their funeral because they were dead, and then you sent them to the leper colony, and you ignored it. That did not exist anymore, right? But yet they were all alive there. And St. Francis said, well, I'm gonna go be with them. I'm gonna go be in with those who are out. And I think this is just the same thing, you know? So I don't know, I wouldn't say this is something about modern society as much as the human condition, right?
What came to my mind as I walk around is I just see that there's this understanding of freedom in the modern that is this kind of freedom from constraint. I can do whatever I want. It seems like a pretty American idea, like I don't need it. There's no authority over my will, essentially, kind of like voluntarism. And so this is, when I go to Kensington, I have this impression. It's like, okay, well this can be the result of something like that, where you just sort of, if you're, go following whatever your bliss is.
Yeah.
If your bliss happens to be certain chemicals, then those can addict you in a certain way. It's really sad. So I don't know. But the question would be, why did you choose this particular form of service to Christ? What is it? There's lots of different ways you can serve the church, both of you, and you're deciding to, or you're discerning whether you want to. But you've made enough of a decision to come live here and not do whatever else you could do.
Yeah.
What is it about this particular charism, this particular form of service here in Kensington, and how do you do it that was attractive?
Yeah, for me, in some ways, my discernment was more around the Capuchin Franciscan charism of, this balance of contemplative and active life. Here we are in the chapel. We spend, over an hour every day in meditation, much more time in prayer. We have mass every day. That was very attractive, but I knew I wasn't called to be a purely contemplative, and I wanted to serve others. And I wanted to do it in such a way that I didn't care about if I was going to make money doing it. I wanted to be able to simply help wherever, and that felt like the Franciscan charism as I discerned that. How I ended up here then was, this is my assignment. I was studying philosophy in Washington, D.C., and I got the call from my provincial, and they said, would you like to serve and work with the postulants as a formator and then help in the streets in the neighborhood there, the evangelization center? Okay. And whatever I'm asked to do next, that'll be the next thing that I put my heart into.
What about yourself?
Yeah, I think for me, I never had a lot of exposure to the poor growing up. I'm from a small town in northern Arizona, not a lot going on. And so it just wasn't part of my experience. But as I started feeling that the Lord was calling me to give my life in service, I was looking at, okay, how is that going to be? And when I found the Capuchins, it was the fraternity that drew me. The being together with the brothers, praying with the brothers, as Brother Alex had mentioned, serving with the brothers. And I just kind of was like, sweet, let's go, sign me up, not knowing entirely what to expect when it came to ministry. And so coming in, Kensington ministry was actually one of the things I was most intimidated by when I first arrived, is I was like, I don't know what to expect here. It's so far out of my lived experience that, I don't know, Jesus, we'll see what happens.
Right.
And I think...
Was it scary for you?
I don't think it was ever scary. It was intimidating, for sure, and sad to see, but I don't recall a point where I was ever scared. But it has been really neat and beautiful to see the growth in my own heart the past 6 months, where I can legitimately and honestly say now, I love the poor. And I get excited to go down to Kensington because I get to see Jesus in them. And I get to minister to him and minister to his children.
Praise God. You talked earlier, brother, about the particular types of poverty. How would you characterize the difference between this addiction, which is obviously the scourge here is, I think, probably the addictive piece is what people know about Kensington. What is it about this particular form of poverty that is so devastating, so evil, as you said?
Yeah, I think, that's a great question, because we talk about poverty, and certainly we as friars, and what Joseph's discerning, is taking a vow of poverty, so voluntary poverty, which we see as a good, as a grace, as a gift from God, to be able to take the vow of poverty. And then when we encounter what we see in Kensington, it's like, whoa, it seems other, right? It seems so other in terms of poverty as to not be comparable, right, to the sort of poverty that we're trying to voluntarily take on. And I think it is the complete, again, maybe the individual when they first chose to try heroin or try fentanyl or whatever they tried, maybe there was some freedom there. But it may have also been that they were being obedient to their doctor who prescribed them a pill after surgery. I don't know, right? But whatever that first choice was, after that, there's not a whole lot of free will left, and so the hope of getting out of that, right? Again, if I'm financially poor, if I'm stuck in a tough situation, we still believe that there's some freedom of choice. We still believe that person can get up and get out of there, maybe with help, maybe with, but it's something about this addiction that is so other, right? Like, you almost want to lose hope. And so, and of course, if you know the Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12 steps, that first step is that you have to admit powerlessness. You have to say, in fact, I have no more free will over this. I literally have to surrender. And that's what I think makes that type of poverty in Kensington so destructive, is it's destroyed my will, right? What makes me human.
Right. You become sort of just a slave to a
Yeah.
particular thing. And now
Precisely.
you're no longer really a social animal in a certain
No.
way. You're just an animal.
Yeah.
What would you, if somebody was watching this or listening to this, and they've never been to Kensington,
Sure.
what would you want them to know about it?
But it's full of people. It's full of individuals who have parents, who have siblings, some have kids, and they are missed, they are loved by those loved ones. That they are children of God, and that God still loves them, even as they are in the midst of addiction, even as they are acting inordinately.
Right. I think that, at least the ways that I've kind of thought about it, is that it's kind of like the Calcutta of Philadelphia, if you will, where you hear these stories, or at least I heard these stories growing up, of like Mother Teresa going out into the streets and you find people just laying there, and just having your heart moved with pity, with mercy, with love. Kensington is the place where that happens, if you allow it to happen in your heart. That place where God can really speak to you, and call you into something more, maybe.
Interesting. I had this experience when I first went to Kensington with Reagan and Christie. They do the missions once a month, and I noticed two things when I was down there. Number one was that basically all I found when I was there were people that were homeless, drug addicts, and Christians. That was it, of different sorts. I saw sort of like Black Baptists. I saw, we had the Catholics, and there was Korean evangelicals. So I'm curious your thought on that. And the other was I was very surprised by how open the people that I encountered on the street were to prayer. I thought that they would have been, oh, you guys, this is cross, and this is silly. And maybe there was some of that, but I was surprised by their openness when we asked them, can I pray for you? Is there something that you want me to pray for you?
Yeah.
There was a huge amount of openness to that, which I doubt I would have found on Rittenhouse Square, actually. I don't know, I've never done the experiment, but my thought was when I was doing it, I wonder if I just walked up to normal people on Rittenhouse Square, if they would have taken my hand and prayed with me,
right.
how many of them would. Whereas in Kensington, there's a lot of that. I don't know if you guys have any comment on either one of those.
Yeah, so Joseph and I, we're doing a class together right now on morality, right, and sort of Catholic morality in general, and looking at Veritatis Splendor, St. Pope John Paul II's really amazing work on morality. And And this, what more can I do? The rich young man asks Jesus, and he says, sell what you have and come follow me. Well, what does it look like to follow Jesus, right? Well, he's dining with the sinners, with the tax collectors, the hated, the outsider, the outcast, and he's inviting them to be healed. He is healing them, or he's inviting them to change their way. And so I think it makes total sense that you'd find Christians down amidst places that other people don't want to be. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And as far as the individuals themselves being open to prayer, like they're not happy.
Yeah.
They're not happy that they live there. They're not happy they're on the streets. I've not met one person from Kensington that's happy to be in Kensington. Maybe the drug dealers, but I'm not sure they're even happy. Like, they're making money, but I don't think they're happy. So it's like there's no joy, there's no happiness. And so when you offer something like hope, you'll take whatever you can get,
That's a beautiful answer.
Yeah, I think, especially with the second one, there's, like, the people in Kensington really can't say that there's nothing missing, right? Like, they're very clearly living in poverty. And I think with that realization comes the realization that, okay, so maybe I need something else, right? Maybe there's more. And when somebody comes around and is saying, hey, like, can I pray for you? It's kind of like, well, why not? Like, I don't think it could get much worse. So there's this recognition. Yeah. There's this recognition of, like, well, they're offering something more than what I have.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take it. Yeah.
That more is, I think, the key too. I want to say, like, Rittenhouse Square, everybody has a longing for more. We're all incomplete, finite beings, and so we have this longing for completion. But if you're living in Rittenhouse Square, you're living in, a nice apartment, a nice house, I feel pretty fulfilled. I feel pretty complete. I'd have to dig pretty deep to see that I'm actually still unsatisfied. I'd have to look at my habits and my, that I spend all this time searching for happiness in pornography, or I spend an inordinate amount of time looking for happiness by going clubbing or doing this. But overall, I'm a happy person. You're not in Kensington. The more is pretty obvious. The desire for completion, for fulfillment.
Right. It's an obvious lack.
It's
It's obvious. Interesting. We were just again at the group over at Last Stop, and they made one of the father that was there said something interesting, which was when he hears these stories, because he comes to AA meetings a lot, and he was listening to their testimony, because I think one of the meetings is they tell a story about your addiction or whatever, and he said that there were so many Catholics that are out there, and that so many of them had such a difficult experience growing up as a Catholic. The church was judgmental, whatever their problem with the church was. It seemed to be an epidemic of people just having been ill-formed as Catholics.
Yeah.
What would you say to people? What message from the church or from Christ and his church would you want people to know who are on the street and maybe got a miseducation about their faith? What would you want them to know if you could give them a message?
I'm sorry. That shouldn't have been that way. I wish it had been different for you. I myself did not have a completely positive experience of the Catholic Church growing up. I didn't love it, didn't see the need for it. I didn't have any, obviously any of the terrible things that some people have experienced in the church, but have met many as well, in the rooms of AA, on the streets, just people, regular old lives. And so, yeah, I guess first and foremost, I'm sorry that that's the experience. And from the church, don't give up on Jesus because of interactions with people. Jesus Christ still loves, still wants to save, even though he works through imperfect and fallen individuals, the members of the body of Christ.
That's a great message, brother. How about you, Joseph?
Yeah, I was gonna go somewhere similar with it. With, like, the church isn't just, like, the people that you interacted with. It isn't just the maybe grouchy old priest. It isn't just the lady in the choir who can't hit all the notes. The church is a relationship with Jesus. And if that hasn't been your experience, then I'm sorry, but he's still there for you. He still wants you. He's still waiting.